Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Categorically Romance podcast. My name is Bree, and today I am so excited. I have author Nancy Robards Thompson joining us for the first time. Nancy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on the podcast, Bree. It's very fun, very exciting.
Thank you. Well, we're recording this. It's, towards the very end of April. I feel like April has been the longest month ever. But 2024, how has it been for you so far?
It's really been shaping up to be a great year. It really has. I just finished a book, and I just agreed to write another one, which we'll talk about later. But yes, so far it's been it's been an eventful first 2 quarters of the year, or quarter of the year, I guess it is. So.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Okay, I can't wait to hear what we've agreed to write next. Since it's your first time here, can you share with us a little bit about yourself?
Certainly, yes. I've written 51 traditionally published books. And as I just said a moment ago, I recently turned in my 51st book and agreed to write book 52, which will be one of the Fortunes of Texas for 2025. In my notebook, we're going to talk about the 2024 series here in a few minutes. But my cozy mystery series, the Wedding Bell Mysteries, has been optioned for television, for a television series, and they should start filming soon. So that's
Oh my gosh, congratulations.
thank you.
I love cozy mysteries.
I'm really having fun with my series, and this, the television series is just the cherry on top. It's surreal, actually. But I'm a former journalist, and I've been writing romance, women's fiction, both historical and contemporary women's fiction, and mysteries full time since probably early 2006.
Mhm.
I grew up in Central Florida, but my husband and I followed our daughter and son-in-law to Tennessee, Northeast Tennessee, after they got married. She's our only child, so and she was all for it. She was like, "Sure, come on." So we, so,
Tennessee is gorgeous, so no worries.
yeah. So now we're in Northeast Tennessee, and with our corgi named Luna. And when I'm not writing, I like to paint and cook and bake and spend time with my family.
Yeah, you posted a photo recently of Luna that is like spring and autumn are my like favorite seasons and they're tied. It's hard to choose. But you posted this photo of Luna that was like the epitome of spring. Like she's outside in the backyard. There's all these beautiful flowers. And I was like, oh my
Was
gosh.
that the one with the cherry blossoms on?
Yes.
You know what? They had just fallen, and they were so, oh my gosh, we had so many cherry blossoms on the tree, but they had fallen down and it looked like pink snow. It was just the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, I was like, "This is so sweet." Well, and I had wanted to ask, so you did mention that you have the journalism background. So
Yes.
then switching over to writing fiction, was that difficult? Like I hear authors, you all talk so much about the importance of like your voice.
Yeah.
How difficult was that for you, like switching the journalist voice off?
Well, you know what? I think I was always more of a fiction writer rather than a journalist. It wasn't easy for me to ask hard questions. And I covered city government for a while. And I finally just got to the point where I was like, wow, I really don't love this. But I had always written in notebooks and stuff like that. So, but I'm not going to lie, my writing, the way I had learned to write was really, geared toward writing a story, which you have to just, I had an editor actually say to me once, I only want you to report the facts. And that's when something clicked. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, just kill me now, because I don't think I can just do that. You
Do
know what I mean?
that, yeah.
But
Yeah.
I had to learn. I read, and Romance Writers of America was such oh my gosh, just such a godsend, because it was almost like I got another degree in creative writing. I mean, of course, it wasn't, accredited, but this with the classes and everything. But yeah, I had to do a lot of remedial work to learn how to write a good book, basically.
Yeah.
So
Wow. Okay, I have some icebreakers, so
okay.
whatever comes to mind. If you came with a warning label, what would it say?
Do not mistake my kindness for weakness.
So true. I think that is definitely mine too.
Yeah.
I feel like people just think like nice people, like you're so nice and
Mhm.
I'm gonna like take advantage of you and walk all over you. And you're like, no.
No, 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 no. Well,
Like,
that's right. Yeah. And
just
then
that I'm nice. Like I'm not mean all the time, but that
no.
doesn't mean, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird.
No, it is, and we need more kindness in the
We
world.
need more kindness.
Yeah, we do.
Um, 2 of your favorite, it can be totally random, it can be current obsessions, lifelong obsessions, 2 favorite things. What are they?
Well, aside from my family and my dog, because they are people, even my dog, I'd have to say probably my paints and my books, but coffee and flowers would have to be in there too. But
Oh, yes. I
so
love flowers and coffee.
yeah.
Do you have a favorite flower?
I do. I love peonies. We haven't had any success growing them here. This has been like a really cool thing about being in Northeast Tennessee is we can actually grow things here. But we
Mhm.
have irises and like daffodils that just won't quit, and those
Yeah.
blossoms, and I'm just totally in awe. So yeah, probably I'd say the peonies, and we're working on getting those. Like or learning how to do those.
Mhm,
So.
mhm. Um, what is one of your favorite romance tropes to read?
Second chance at love stories because I love it when people who met and got, at the wrong time, maybe, or something just wasn't conducive to them getting together, that when they get a do over and they get a chance to do it right and fall in love.
I know. Oh, that is such a special trope. It's so special. Who is one of your most read authors? Like somebody you look at your shelf and you like, "Yep, I've read just about everything."
Yeah. Right now, I'm totally obsessed with a husband and wife writing team named Cleo Coyle. They pen the Coffee House
The
Mysteries. And
Cozy series?
yes,
I
yes.
didn't know that was a husband and wife duo.
Yes, they are, believe it or not. So I just think that's cool. I love my husband dearly. I could never, ever, ever collaborate with
Me
him.
neither. Me neither.
That's, in all fairness, he would say the same thing about me. He's just not, what he likes isn't what I do. But
Yes.
But I'm really in awe. I just first of all, the stories are just so smart and so, just fun and interesting and also I'm obsessed. And I think I know in the Coffee House series, I believe they've got at least 20 books, and then they write another series, which is more ghosty, which that's not really my thing, but I'm sure it's fabulous,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm totally obsessed with the Coffee House mysteries. And so I've got every single one of their books and I'm waiting, and they probably won't have another one out. I don't even know if they've announced a release date yet, but I know the last one came out in October and I devoured it in a day.
Oh my gosh.
Now I have to wait a year.
Oh gosh, that's the beauty of a good cozy. Once you get because they're so cozy, you like want to be in it, and then like the mysteries themselves are just so good, and yeah, I mean they're totally one sitting reads. I'm not doing anything else but reading them. Like I love that.
Right.
Um, favorite color to wear? What's one of yours?
Oh, wow. So I love color, and I guess that stands to reason because I also love to paint, but I wear a lot of black and white, believe it or not.
Yeah, yeah,
But
same.
I like pink and blue and reds, but it really just depends on my mood. But yeah, I love black and white. If you looked at my closet, you'd be like, oh, wow, neutral.
Like, do you buy anything that's not gray, breed? Not really.
Uh,
Um, we love hearing romance origin stories. So can you share with us how you became a romance reader and then like I mean you shared a little bit about you've pretty much always been basically writing fiction or you did fiction more. You had more of a fiction voice than the journalist voice. Like were you always doing both at the same time? Like how did both romance reading and now writing happen?
Well, my mom was an avid reader, and she never censored what I read, and so as long as I had a book in my hand, anything was fine. In fact, there's a funny story. It's not a romance book, but anyway. But I do, just to answer your question. I we used to take weekly trips to the library, and that's how I discovered romance novels. But she bought me way back in the day. She let me buy Stephen King's novel Carrie, and, I was reading it and so forth. I took it to school with me. I think I may have been in sixth grade. And my teacher freaked out and took it away from me and said, you need to have your mother contact me before you get this book back. And
Oh
my mom was like,
gosh.
yeah, I bought it for her. She's reading. What's the big deal? Um, so yeah, and I just would always just kind of write down. I had I still, well, we're still in touch, but one of my childhood friends and I used to pass a notebook back and forth, and we'd have a continuing story going on. It was so much fun.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And I don't she doesn't have the notebooks and I don't either, so I don't know what happened to them. And I wish I would love to find them,
I
but
know.
so
To any 11 or 12-year-old girls that may listen to this, hold on to the notebooks.
hold
Hold
on
on
to
to them.
that's right. But they were love stories, actually. We were obsessed with a boy band, of course, and so we would write our write our own love stories here and pass them back and forth.
The days of, like, early fan fiction in notebooks.
Right, and notebooks, there you go. That's right.
Well, from what I could see online, it was 2004 when you released Reinventing Olivia. Does that sound right? About right?
Yes, yes, I think so.
So can you walk us through your journey to getting published?
Yes, yes, it was a rocky road, believe it or not. I actually got serious about writing in 1997. I had just joined the Central Florida Romance Writers, which was a chapter of RWA. And that was one of the best things that I could have ever done. I read in Writer's Digest, I read an article with Nora Roberts, and she was extolling the virtues of RWA. So I was like, oh, okay, if Nora says it, I've got to join.
Yeah.
So that's when I got serious. But so I set it out to write, and I decided I was going to aim my manuscripts at silhouette romance. So that tells you how long ago that was. And I wrote 3 books for them, and oh my gosh, the process was so slow. Oh my gosh. So on the first 2, I got revision requests, which was exciting, but that was back. We didn't even email in. Gosh, I'm really dating myself here, but we didn't email things, and you had to like print it out and send it in and wait and wait and wait, and then you'd get a call and okay, or a letter saying okay, revise please. But
Golly, that had to have been, like, the longest process ever.
it was actually over like a 3-year span, and the first 2 were rejected, just finally like, sorry, this just isn't what we're looking for at this time. But then so I sent in a 3rd book, and I was so sure that like the 3rd manuscript would be the charm, because in between this, I finaled in the Romance Writer's Golden Heart twice. I won once with that 3rd book that I had just sent in. I got an agent, and so I'm like, oh, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. But before they could make a decision, they closed the Silhouette Romance line. So it was just, and they didn't really see like it fitting because it was a sweet romance, and they didn't see it fitting anywhere else in any of the other lines. So it was just sort of like, thanks for playing,
Oh my gosh, that has to be the worst. Like,
Yeah.
then the line is closed.
Yeah, the line's closed. So, everything I had learned and everything I had been, like really honing toward that line. And also it stung, but so what I did is I let myself wallow for 24 hours. That's what I call my 24-hour pity party. And unfortunately, I still have 24-hour pity parties even now, even
You're
after.
human, I think you deserve it, and you deserve it.
So, but 24 hours and then pick yourself up and, get back to it. So, but what I decided to do to take back my power, and this is nothing against Harlequin because I love them and I'm writing for them, but this is just my journey. But at that time I decided I'm going to write something that Harlequin and Silhouette can't have. So I switched over and I decided to write a chick lit, and that became Reinventing Olivia. So, but there's a fun story. I don't know if do we have time for me to
You
tell?
have all the time, yes.
Oh, thank you. So, so my husband and I lived near downtown Orlando, and there was this new restaurant, and it was like on the first floor of this high-rise condo building, and it was brand new, and it was really the first of its kind in downtown because downtown was like in a real transition then, kind of the old-fashioned sort of downtown to really now there's a lot of like these high-rise condos with storefronts and everything down there. But anyway, there was even so in this condo there was a rumor that even this like a European prince owned one of the units. So I was always fascinated. I was always like looking up there to see what I could see. Well, one night my husband and I went out to dinner at the restaurant that was below this condo, and as we approached the building I could hear it, what sounded like a party going on, like up above, one of the condos. I could hear music and the sound of like a lot of people talking and so forth. Well, I saw this hand holding a drink over one of the balconies, not like they were going to pour it out or anything, but just like they were like talking to somebody, and all I saw was this hand, and I think it was like a martini glass or something like that, and that was the spark for reinventing Olivia. So,
Oh, that moment, yeah, that
you know,
moment.
like
What,
there's
like,
yeah,
it
so
just did that, like, was that, like, a scene that came to you, or was it like, "I wanna know who that person is"? Like, what was it about it,
it
that
was a
moment?
sort of that what if, like that moment that sparked the what if. And because I had decided that if I were young and single, I would have, well, I was young then, but if I were single, I would have totally lived in that building, because it was just like the coolest thing. So I just, maybe putting some of myself, although reinventing Olivia is not autobiographical in the least. Just I think it just sparked that what if.
Yeah.
And so I wrote it, and my agent submitted the first 3 chapters, and it sold. I couldn't believe it.
Oh my gosh. That
It was
is the coolest. That's the
so
coolest.
that shows don't give up. Don't ever give up, even when doors seem to close. Find another one, and that next opportunity could be the one that changes everything. So
Do you feel like, as a writer, do you feel like, because that moment came to you when you were out and about, and as somebody that is, like, trying my hand at writing, I feel like for the longest, I've been a go to work, come home kind of person, and now it's really important for me, like, my husband are doing and I are doing more, like, going out and having dinner on a Friday or, like, lunch on the weekend, and just to, like, be around other people. Like, do you think that is, like, needed creatively, like, that moment would have come to you if you were sitting at home, you think? Does that make sense?
that's right. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think you do need to, get out and have experiences for input, because you're right. It wouldn't have come to me if I hadn't seen that hand.
Yeah, that
that,
little moment led
that,
to an entire book. That's
yeah, yeah.
incredible.
So
Your next title released in 2005, Out with the Old and with the New. And I do a lot of digging on like fiction database. It was the 11th book in the Harlequin Next line, which I hope my friend Chloe is listening, because I'm pretty sure this is the line that she is obsessed with now, because she's a huge women's fiction lover.
Ah,
And so when I saw this, I was like, "Oh my god, I think this is Chloe's line." I think you're the first author we've had on that wrote for that line. So can you talk to us a little bit about it and like how your book came to be part of it?
absolutely. And yeah, I think Chloe and I are kindred spirits. No lie, I have probably at least 50 next novels on my keeper shelf.
Oh.
Such a neat experience. And the tagline for Next was "Every life has more than one chapter." So it was solidly women's fiction, but we had so much latitude of what we could do. And so many great stories came out of Next. So yeah, I was fortunate to be one of the first authors to write for the line. So I didn't realize it was number 11, but I think they published 4 a month, and I think I was in the third month of the launch. So that does stand to reason. But yeah, so I was okay. So I had written um, Reinventing Olivia, and then I wrote some little known thing here. Um, um, a historical fiction novel under Elizabeth Robards.
Mhm.
Robards is, of course, my maiden name, and also just for branding purposes. Believe it or not, the same publisher that published Reinventing Olivia published this one, and it was called With Violets. And HarperCollins actually, because it was a very small press, but HarperCollins actually ended up um, picking up With Violets later and republishing it. So that was exciting. But back to Next. So I had written in Olivia, written With Violets. That was something completely different, and I really loved the contemporary women's fiction. So I started writing this story, and it was just one of those. I don't know. I'm trying to think of where it came from, but it was just one of those where this this voice really, this woman's voice just really spoke to me. So I started writing it. And again, and this was one of those where I was in the right place at the right time. But luck is preparedness meets opportunity. My agent sent in like the first chapter or the first three chapters or something like that to Gail Chasen at Harlequin, and she was in charge of Next. One of the authors who was, I'm sorry, authors editors who was in charge of Next, and she bought it. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah, so and it's set in Orlando. So this once again, like the Reinventing Olivia was set in Orlando where I lived, and so it was familiar to me and so forth. So it was just really a lot of fun. It was a story about divorce, which I don't know where that came from. I've am fortunate. I've never been divorced, and my parents were never divorced. But it was a story about divorce and what I imagined the turmoil that it would have on like a young family and so forth. But it's funny because I was talking to a friend of mine not too long ago because both of us are really close to our fathers, and I had written something else where there was a like where the father was like a bad guy, and my dad actually questioned it, and I'm like, I don't know. It's not no reflection on you, but my friend said, if you think about it, I think we think of our worst fears, and
Yeah, yeah.
that's how we turn it into, it's fodder for story, because it's sort of the, oh my gosh, if this happened, if this worst fear came true, which is probably how I came up with Out with the Old and with the New. But it was an emotional story to write, but it was also a lot of fun, and it was just really cool to be part of Next.
Oh, that's yeah. I'm always like, you hear of these lines that have come and gone, and I'm like, my goodness, I love women's fic. Why did this? I just think that sometimes some of the lines were like ahead of its time, maybe. I don't know, because I'm like I said, I have girlfriends that are digging them out through like eBay now and love them, and I'm like, people would love this right now, but I'm like,
Oh,
sometimes I just think they were like too early
too
for
early. Yeah,
yeah.
possibly, or you just never know. I know. I just was so, 'cause I ended up writing 7 Next novels before I transitioned over to Special Edition. And before they closed the line, and I was so sad when they when they did, but I was grateful to be able to write for Special Edition too.
Yeah. So did you move to special edition because Next closed or no?
No, I had actually been trying to sell to Special Edition for a couple of years before um, Next closed, and I was fortunate that my editor Gail Chasen was also the senior editor for Special Edition, and so I kept came up with a couple of proposals that she never really rejected, but then it would be like, well, let's see what else you have for Next, you know what I mean? And so, but then I had one, and she was like, "Yes, this is going to be your first special edition." So, and it just happened to coincide when Next was closing.
Wow. Okay. So now we have you in the great special edition. Uh, and your upcoming title is Worth a Fortune, and it releases in June. And it's
Yes,
part of the Fortunes of Texas Digging for Secrets miniseries. Can you share with us what it's about?
yes. Oh my gosh, this story was really really dear to me too. Um, let's see. The hero is Camden Fortune, and Haley Perry, and it's a it was both an emotional. It was emotional, but there's also like a little thread of mystery to it, which I love. So it's a story about, basically, I think the heart of it is a story about loyalty, and do you stand by your family at the cost of losing like the love of your life? Or the flip side of that is, do you keep going? She's a journalist. Haley is an investigative journalist, and she's investigating something that could be really bad for the Fortunes, like one of the offshoots. If you've read any of the Fortunes or a few of the Fortunes, there's many branches to their family
A
tree.
lot. Yes.
So this story could make the difference for her in really like springboarding her career, but then she meets Camden, and it's like, oh, do I choose love, or do I choose what's best for my career? And then Camden's conflict, of course, was, do I stay loyal to my family, even if certain family members might not be worthy of that loyalty, you know? So, um, but it was fun because, you know, I actually got to, you know, my past as a journalist informed Haley's story. So that was pretty cool.
What do you enjoy, creatively about being part of the continuities?
I love them. I love working with the other authors. I love getting to know them, especially because I mean, it's such a writing can be such a solitary thing, like we spoke about before, you know, about when we were talking about whether you should get out and get these experiences or what. But this really gives you a reason to meet the other authors, which is, you know, because we're all busy, we've all got our heads down and so forth. But what was really cool is that my heroine Haley was part of a set of triplets who had been separated as babies and then reunited. They went through foster care. One was adopted and so forth, but they never knew each other as children. But they reunited in early adulthood. So I had to work closely with the other two authors, Terry Wilson and Tara Taylor Quinn, so that we could get our backstory straight. You know, we had to figure out like how they got back together, when they got back together, and what their personalities were like. You know, so for me, the collaboration is really what makes it so much fun. You know, so much.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm always interested in hearing y'all's experience about the continuities because I know that like somebody else kind of comes up with the overall story and then you're just like, okay, I'm taking it and I'm running with it, you know? And I'm like, that sounds really fun, but also challenging because the kind of like skeleton was built for you. And I feel like, does that make it like its own kind of challenging?
It
So
And I've written several, gosh, at least a dozen fortunes books, and it seems like for the most part, I've had book 5. In this next, in 2025, I have book 3, which is a change, and that's fun. But the way the process is that when we write them, we each have different deadlines, you know, because they have to go through, you know, editing and production and so forth. And so by the time I'm writing book 5, books 1 through 3 at least are already sort of like put to bed.
yeah.
So if there's a tear in my story that doesn't add up or doesn't align with what, you know, the other books have done, usually book 4, I collaborated a lot with Terry so that we could make sure because hers was book 4, Terry Wilson's was book 4, and there were some things that either she could adjust in editing or I could say, you know, I went back and adjusted and so forth. But you know, with books 1 through 3, they were already done, and so I had to adjust. But yeah, Susan Littman is the editor who handles the both the Fortunes and the Mavericks, the Montana Mavericks
We
continuities, and
love Susan. We
I
love her here.
adore her. I adore her. Yeah. Um, but I don't know how she keeps track of everything, and she does it like a genius. I mean, she really does, and she's just so good and so patient with us. And you're a teacher, right?
Yes.
So I say to her, I said, you know, sometimes I feel like it's like you have like a bunch of children here who you're trying
It's
to
her secret Susan power, okay? We'll never know.
she does it and she does it well. So, but yeah, she's a huge reason that I think that the continuities are so successful because she keeps track. And not only does she have to keep track of the current one and all the authors, what we're doing now, but she has to keep back, you know, like past issues in mind too. Because if we said, you know, like this was the first time this person is meeting this person, she can be like, oh no, no, you know, like
Yeah, and those longtime readers would be like, no, back in book 37, 20
back,
years ago."
back, back.
Oh, it's so much you guys have to keep in line. Um, July, I love the cover of this book that you have coming out, Rules of Engagement. Can you tell us what it's about?
Yes, yeah, it's and I keep saying that was a fun book to write. I think they have to be fun stories in order for me to do them. But Rules of Engagement is the third book in my McFadden's of Tinsley Co series, and it's a friends to lovers story. And there's the heroine tells a little white lie about being in a relationship because her mother is sick. She thinks she's actually gravely ill. And the mom gets very confused. And this little, let's just say the little white lie snowballs into a fake engagement of convenience between her and Owen McFadden, who's the third brother in the series. And they've been lifelong best friends. So yeah, so this little white lie all of a sudden becomes like this great big thing, you know.
It sounds
So
so fun.
yeah,
I'm so excited. I love I love special edition all throughout the year, but especially like the spring stories and the summer stories. I'm like, I just feel like you all just amp up the fun premises. And when I love the like outdoors, and then like the little like fairy lights are hanging over them. I'm always like, okay, they're doing it again. It's
they,
another summer of these like gorgeous covers and fun plot lines. So
they
I'm
did a
excited.
I love the colors on that one and so forth. And yeah, they did a really good job. But this series, The McFadden's of Tinsley Cove, so it's a 3-book miniseries, but it was inspired by a show on Netflix that I am obsessed with. It's called The Parisian Agency. And the Parisian Agency is about this family in the European luxury real estate business. There's 4 brothers, and they're part of this family business that sells like these incredible houses. So, I'm always like traveling vicariously through that show. But I thought, wouldn't that be cool? That would just be so much fun because here are these 4 gorgeous brothers. And I only have 3 in my series, but I have 3 gorgeous brothers, and so I did a little twist on it and put them in the fictional town of Tinsley Cove, North Carolina, and they specialize in beachfront luxury properties. So,
Yeah.
and the first true brothers in the series were basically very dedicated to the family business, but then Owen, the hero in book 3, is kind of the bad boy,
You got to
rebel.
throw a bad boy brother in there. You have to.
That's right.
Yeah, I was obsessed when I saw Selling Sandcastle. I think I saw it at Walmart and I was like, I have to have this. This is
Yeah.
gorgeous. I love the title, the cover. I don't even read the backs of them anymore. I feel like special edition is just like cover buys for me. I'm like, I'll read about what it's about later.
Well, I'm glad you saw that and liked it. But yeah, that was really fun. That brother came into it, into the business unwillingly, but then he really, after he worked through some of his issues, he was really dedicated to the business. But this hero was more of a just wanted no part of it, basically. Oh, and I forgot to say that in the midst of everything, there's a network that might or might not be similar to Netflix. That's in the book, not in real life, but in the book, that's filming this show about the McFadden. So kind of like with the Parisian Agency, they're filming this reality television show around this luxury real estate business. So Owen, of course, has been completely misunderstood because he's an entrepreneur, but the show painted him to be like this like guy, all he wanted to do was surf and hang out on the beach, but really he's a like a software engineer, and they don't know it, but he invented this game, sort of like Wordle, that nobody knew that he did because he was a one hit wonder. But anyway, it's so fun.
The bad boy is always so misunderstood.
Always so misunderstood. That's right. And
Well,
it was
you've
fun.
had like this really cool career. Like knowing what you know now, what would you go back and tell yourself at the beginning of it? Like what would you go back and tell Nancy way back in the day when you first got started?
I would say just take a deep breath, keep on writing, and just don't look back. Just keep writing. Just write. You finish one book. A good friend of mine, actually, who's an artist, had this because I was really angsty, especially after trying for 3 years and getting that rejection. I'm like, maybe this isn't for me, But I just so my friend was like, you know what, you got to think of it as like she said, not to diminish the product, but think of it as like you write a book and you're stuffing it down this pipe. Just keep stuffing that
Just
pipe.
keep stuffing it down the pipe. That's
Keep stuffing
right.
pipe. Eventually something's going to come out the other end, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if that's like a real, is that a good thing? But no. So what I finally took that to mean personally was, you just have to, in this business, you just have to keep writing. And There's no expiration date on stories. Some stories may not, like your first book might not sell, but you've always got it. Now you have to, so you might have to modernize it a bit and so forth to make it, appropriate for the market. But you just never know. I know Robin Carr was one of the like most prolific quote unquote overnight sensations because it took her a while to sell, and when she finally did, she had this body of work. So I would just say, you're going to be published, but it's not going to be easy. It's never going to be easy. Change, because change is the only constant in the publishing industry, but you just have to keep doing it. You just have to keep writing your stories.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have any stories, then, you don't have anything to get the yes or the no for, so I think that's perfect advice.
I was working full time when I was trying to finish my first book, and I had wanted to enter it into the Golden Heart um, RWA's contest. And I got up, I am so not a morning person, but I got up at 5 a.m. and wrote 2 pages of that book every morning before work. My daughter was little then, and, I was trying to, juggle everything and so forth. But, you think about it, two pages, even if you write 1 page a day, 250 words, at the end of the year, you're going to have a finished book. So little steps add up to a lot.
I really love that you were like, "I'm just gonna do 2 pages." Like,
Yeah,
that's a lot, especially if you are dedicated to doing it every day. Those 2 pages add up.
they do. They sure do. And there was a period of time when it just seemed like it was impossible to write. So then a friend of mine challenged me, write 100 words a day. Just sit down and write 100 words. That's 10 lines of 10 words. You can do that. And if you do it every day, it's going to add up. So that it was, yeah, both of those, things, the incremental things had a huge impact on actually just doing it and, getting through that first book. So
'Cause it feels like, as somebody that's trying, the first book is the toughest.
it is, and you know what, Brie, it took me about 2 years to write my first book, but that's because probably about a year and a half of that I spent it spinning my wheels and wanting to write, and I'm gonna write, and then 6 months would go by, and okay, well, I had maybe a couple of good writing days in there, but when I broke it down and I didn't look at it, oh, I did, well, you look at it in parts and pieces. You do have to know the whole book. You kind of have to know where you're going, or at least little turning points along the way. But you don't look at it that, sit down and figure out, what am I going to write this morning in these 2 pages that's going to move the plot forward and get me to where I need to go tomorrow, where I'll write 2 more pages.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, look at it in those, like, bite-sized chunks.
Bite-sized chunks. That's right. Yeah,
Well, I have
exactly.
a couple of rapid fire writing questions for you. So
Okay.
the first one, are you a plotter or pantser, or would you say you're a mix of both?
I'm definitely a plotter. It's my roadmap.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Have you always been a plotter, or is that something that you grew into?
Always been a plotter. I didn't always know how to plot, but I learned how to plot. And that's what helps keep me on track too.
Okay. So when you say you learned how to plot, for the I'm not a plotter person that's listening that wants to be a plotter, what
Hmm.
is a piece of advice you have on if you don't know how to do it, do this?
Okay. Well, first I want to say too, there's nothing wrong with being a pantser, and I don't know how people do it, and I look at them in awe and reverence. But if you do want to become a plotter, learn basic story structure. And, there's various degrees of plotting. I usually know what each scene is going to be about. I don't always stick to it, but at least I know. And it's sort of like a point A to point B. It's like, okay, I'm starting this scene at point A. I'm eventually going to arrive at point B. How does this move the story forward? Why does this matter? How does it change the story? Because it should. Each scene that you write should change the story or up the stakes. So look at story structure, and you can look at 3 act structure, beginning, middle, and end. I use turning points. The first turning, and think of it as like the first turning point in your story will occur approximately like a quarter of the way through. And something big needs to happen. Now, what that means is individual to your story. Then from there, So imagine like a line going up, you're going to get to the second turning point, which should be the middle of the book, and something big's going to happen there. In romance, sometimes it's good, and this is very simplistic, but like the first turning point could be the first kiss or the first acknowledgement of attraction. The middle turning point could be the love scene. Then you're working from the middle point to the three-quarter point, and that's usually when the black moment happens.
Mm.
And then from there, you've got the resolution. So those can be your sort of, that's your skeleton right there, your plotting skeleton. And then you go back and look at it in chunks of like, okay, the first, like the beginning of the story to the first turning point. Where do you need to show them in their world? I almost forgot this. Oh gosh, why am I blanking on it? I've got it right over here on my bookshelf. The Hero's Journey. That's the book I'm thinking of. Christopher Vogler's Hero's Journey is really a good thing to have, because it actually takes you through the hero's journey. Now, some people might say, "Oh, so this is formula writing," but this is sort of a prescription or a roadmap for any kind of page turning commercial fiction. And a lot of Hollywood movies like George Lucas, Spielberg, and so forth will use the hero's journey as a, because it's like like you show the hero in their, or it's a 12-step thing. You show the hero or heroine in their ordinary world. They have a call to adventure of some sort. They refuse the call, then they accept the call, and that propels them into this next world. And then in the hero's journey, there's like meeting with the mentor. Anyway, that gets a little involved, and that could be like a whole that could be like a whole day long workshop in itself. But I highly recommend that, because just looking, if you look at your story that you want to tell, it almost is like, will help you ask yourself questions like, well, how can I show my hero and heroine in their ordinary world? What's the call to adventure?
Mhm.
Why would they refuse it? Why would they answer it? And then you can write your scenes accordingly. So does that make sense?
Yeah, I need to read that one. I listened to, I have it on Audible somewhere. There's The Heroine's Journey. I've listened to that one.
Mhm.
I need to read the hero's journey, because I think you're absolutely right. I think you can look at it as kind of like a checklist you can create for yourself in a way. Like, did I
Exactly.
do this? This is kind of what needs to happen next. And for a person like me, I need that. So
I do, well, I do, and there's nothing wrong with that, because otherwise, if I don't have an idea of where I'm going, they can end up spending a whole lot of time, I don't know, navel gazing or
yeah,
something.
the nothing is happening. Yeah.
Right. Nothing's happening in here. So, but what you want for readers to turn the page. You want
Yes.
editors you're trying to sell. You want them to be able to not turn that page to see what happened until, oh wow, look at this. I was only going to read the first, few lines, and look at me, I'm at the end now.
I'm
So,
here. Yeah. You
yeah.
don't wanna be able to you don't want them to put it down. You want them to keep reading. Um, your preferred time to write is?
I write Tuesday through Friday from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And that's
Oh.
solid. So I have sprinting partners, believe it or not, where we actually hold each other accountable. It's almost like a workout buddy, but it's a writing buddy. We're all over the place. I'm in Tennessee. I have one who is in Oregon. Who my steady sprinting buddy is in Nebraska, and we meet every day. Or we tell each other. It's almost like a job. Like showing up for a job. Hey, sorry, I've got a doctor's appointment today, or hey, something came up. Life gets in the way sometimes, but I really try to protect my writing time, because like we've said, I think a couple times already, if you don't write the story, if you don't get the words down, nothing else that you're doing, and toward I'm not saying that in life in general, but just like all the social media you do, all the conferences that you go to, if you don't get the words down and the books written, none of the other stuff really matters. So
Mhm. Do you have any under the bed stories? Like, anything you've written that you are like, "Will this ever see the light of day? Will I pull this out again? Give it another shot?" Any of those?
remember those first two books that were rejected by Silhouette Romance?
Oh, those are the now under the bed. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Now I'm not saying that they won't. I've just been, I have, I always say so many stories, so little time. Um, I've thought about maybe possibly, getting them out again because I do like them. But that third story, I don't know if I mentioned it, but later on, I ended up selling the third story that never got a decision. The line closed. So I ended up selling that to Next. It was a little, I had to do a little bit of, like a little revising and so forth on the storyline itself to make it more of a women's fiction and less of a romance. But yeah, it ended up becoming my book called Sisters, believe it or not. So that one actually sold. But yeah, who knows? Who knows? But yeah, for now they're sleeping under the bed.
And the character you've created that you feel like you had the most fun writing was, or they could have been the most challenging character?
Oh, Bree. That's like asking a mom to choose her child. So I have so many. I love Annabelle from What Happens in Paris, which was a Next novel. I love Sophie from Accidental Princess, excuse me, which was my first special edition. I love Haley from Worth of Fortune because I think just from the journalist's heart, I felt kind of like a kindred spirit with her. I also loved, Juliet from Rules of Engagement, but I also have like a super soft spot for Maddie Bell, who's the ongoing heroine in my cozy mystery, Wedding Bell mystery series. So, yeah, you have to, I think for me anyway, I have to love, living in that world with those characters. Now, there have been some in the past where I'm like, I'm kind of glad this book's done. But for the most part, I would say that I really love most of my characters.
Yeah, you love them.
I do.
I
I
mean, you
do.
spend so much time with them, so, you know.
You really do have to. And you know what? Here's what I think too. If I don't love this story, why would a reader love this story? If
So
I'm
true. Yeah.
if I'm like, oh, this is kind of a boring place, or this is I don't really like this person. That's a key thing. So I have learned too that with most of my next novels and even with my cozy mysteries, there's usually a thread of romance because I tried with Next, we didn't have to. We had a lot of latitude there, and we could have it didn't have to be. It was really focused on the protagonist's journey, the woman's journey, which is what women's fiction what differentiates women's fiction from romance. But I always put a thread of romance in. I tried once and I was like, you know what, to me this is kind of no, it's not as compelling. So like even in my so I went back and put a thread of romance in there. But just even in my cozy mysteries, in the Wedding Bell mysteries, there's a thread of romance for Maddie, who's the mom, and Jenna, who's the daughter, the grown daughter, and it's fun. It's kind of fun to see, and for them to be on go through the ups and the downs. You just have to prolong it. You know what I mean? Enough, but not too long.
Yeah.
Ongoing series.
It's always fun when, there's like a romance in the cozy mystery series because yeah, it doesn't happen all at once, it's very gradual. It's like
Right.
over the span of kind of the series sometimes because sometimes it's like not even necessarily a love triangle, but there are, like, usually a couple, 2 guys that the sleuth could potentially be with, and it's like, which one is she actually gonna end up with? Because 'Cause they're not bad guys. But yeah, I
Yeah.
love a romance amidst all the coziness and sleuthing.
Well, I'll tell you a little secret. My Wedding Bell Mysteries, at first I thought it was only going to be like a 3-book series. So when I wrote the third book in it, I wanted to give everybody like a satisfying ending, and so of course for me that means that I wanted Maddie to get engaged and Jenna to be on her way to happiness too. Because one of Maddie's big uh, conflicts is that she was married to a Navy pilot who had been missing in action. And in the first 2 books, the first book, actually, we don't know what happens with him, if he's alive or dead, and she doesn't want to give up on him. So it's super angsty. But I wanted to resolve that and give her a happy ending at the end of the 3 books. But then when it was optioned for television, they're like, well, we need more books. And I'm like, oh, if I'd known that, I would not have tied everything up so nice and neat. So in this book that I just turned in March, I had to kind of backtrack a little bit and kind of I don't know, shake things up a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And that's the book. It's called Maid of Dishonor, and it'll be out in July.
Okay. Because
So
we need the series to keep going if we're, gonna be getting it
that's
on the
right.
screen. That's so fun. Well, I mean, well, I guess that kind of answers the next question in a way, but I was gonna ask, are you currently working on anything that you can tell us about?
I am, like I said, I just accepted the offer for the Fortunes of Texas,
Mhm.
and so I'm going to be working on that very soon. And of course, the Wedding Bell Mysteries, and then I've got a couple of other things that it's a little too early to talk about. But let's just say I've got plenty to keep me busy.
Well, can you share where everyone can keep up with you online? Do you have a newsletter? Like, plug all the places.
I do. Yes, yes. So you can sign up for my newsletter on my website, and that's nancyrobardsthompson.com. And then you'll see an area where it says, I think it says contact me or get in touch or something. And below that is my newsletter sign up. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook. And on Instagram, you can find me at Nancy R. Thompson, no spaces in between, or you can probably just search for Nancy Robards Thompson. And then I'm on Facebook as Nancy Robards Thompson author and Nancy Robards Thompson books.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today and hanging out with me. This was so much fun. And you
Oh,
have to come back. You have plenty of books coming out that we have to talk about. So please come back.
oh, I would love to. I would absolutely love to. Thank you so much for having me today. This was
Yes.
so much fun.